All right, let's dive right into this explainer and explore the historical thriller that unfolded in India after the mighty Gupta Empire shattered. Picture it, a supreme central authority just entirely collapses, leaving behind this massive, gaping power vacuum. What follows is a period defined by raw ambition, super fragile alliances, and honestly, some shocking betrayals. Today, we're going to unpack exactly how the map of ancient India was violently redrawn in the 6th century. To help us navigate this whole Game of Thrones-style power struggle, here is our game plan. We're going to hit the fall of the Guptas, how we actually uncover the historical sources, the key northern dynasties, the juicy alliances and betrayals, and finally, the rise of Thanesar. Starting off with Section 1, the fall of the Guptas and the massive power vacuum it left behind. So by 625 AD, northern India is literally shattered into these independent regional states. You're no longer looking at one unified, sweeping empire across the subcontinent. Instead, it's totally fractured. Once the Guptas lost their iron grip, the whole map basically broke apart into these intense, competing pockets of power. The mechanics of how this happened are honestly fascinating. Right around the mid-6th century AD, the Gupta Empire officially goes into decline. But it wasn't just some overnight magic vanishing act. Between 600 and 750 AD, you had these former provincial governors and feudatory states, basically the vassals who used to swear total loyalty to the Guptas, suddenly looking around and realizing, hey, we don't actually have to take orders from a central king anymore. So they jumped at the chance to declare independence. They spun up their own administrative systems, built up their own local armies, and really dug down to establish these deep regional identities that would end up shaping Indian history for centuries. Moving right along to Section 2, historical sources, and how we're actually uncovering the past. This part really illustrates our dual lens into the past, which is so cool. On one side, we rely on indigenous texts, and we're not just talking about dry royal decrees here. We've got rich philosophical commentaries, epic Puranic kavyas, plays, and even highly technical literature on things like grammar and math. But then on the flip side, we get these incredibly vital outside perspectives from foreign texts. These travelers weren't just tourists taking in the sights, right? Chinese scholars like Fa Han and Huan Sung, and later on Arab chroniclers, they were taking meticulous, detailed notes on the political climate, the religious tensions, and the violent rivalries going on all around them. When you mash these two lenses together, it gives us this beautifully textured, albeit sometimes incredibly bloody, picture of the era. All right, Section 3, the northern dynasties and the key players who emerge from the chaos. Okay, so the crucial thing here is keeping our regional powers straight, because each one brought totally unique strengths to this fractured north. First up, we've got the Maitrakas out in the west. They started as tributary chiefs over Saurashtra, but built their capital at Vallabhi into an absolute powerhouse. It was a major center of learning and this bustling, super wealthy port. They thrived there right up until Arab attacks weakened them around 712 AD. Then you've got the later Guptas ruling out of Magadha. Now, historians still debate their exact connection to the original imperial Guptas, but inscriptions show a lineage of 8 kings who were just constant battlers, most famously going toe-to-toe with invading groups like the Hunas. And finally, over in Bengal, you have the Gaudas, ruled from Karnasubarna by the incredibly ruthless and ambitious Shashanka. Keep him in mind, because we are absolutely going to be talking more about him in just a second. But wait, the fragmentation gets even more intense, because we also see these factions splitting internally. Just look at the Maukharis as a prime example. The Magadha branch of the family used the title Samanta, which basically meant they acknowledged they were just subordinate rulers under the Guptas. But get a load of their cousins, the Kannauj branch. After a ruler named Ishanavarman successfully put up this massive resistance against the invading Hunas, he completely dropped the subordinate title. He just straight up adopted Maharaja Dhiraj, King of Kings. This Kannauj branch, which was eventually ruled by Gravavarman, ended up putting a massive target on their own backs precisely because they elevated themselves to supreme monarchs. Which leads us perfectly into Section 4, alliances and betrayals, and a very, very fragile piece. So when you have this many heavily armed regional states crammed together, peace is, well, it's incredibly fragile. These rival houses were desperately trying to secure power through this unbelievably complex, tangled web of strategic marriages. It was literally the political glue of the time. For instance, the later Gupta king, Harshavardhana, married his sister off to a Maukhari king. Over in the west, the Maitraka ruler Dhruvasena II married a daughter from the rising Pushyabhuti family. But the most fateful match of all? That was the Pushyabhuti princess Rajashri, who was married off to that Maukhari king we just mentioned, Gravavarman. This specific marriage formed an alliance between two real heavy hitters, and honestly, it completely terrified their rivals. And that terror and jealousy, it completely broke the peace. Enter Shashanka, the ambitious ruler of the Gaudas. He saw this new mega-alliance as a direct threat to his power. So, in this rapid, totally devastating blitz, Shashanka invades Kannauj. He kills King Gravavarman. He imprisons the newly widowed princess Rajashri. And when her older brother, the Pushyabhuti king Harshavardhana, rides out to save her and get some revenge, Shashanka doesn't just defeat him in battle, he treacherously murders him. It was brutal. In one swift, bloody stroke, Shashanka essentially decapitated the leadership of two major ruling families. And the thing about Shashanka is, he wasn't just ruthless in politics. He was deeply, deeply oppressive culturally. The Chinese traveler Huan Song adds this absolutely startling detail to the historical record, noting that Shashanka was fiercely intolerant toward Buddhism. I mean, his extremism reached the point where he actually traveled to Bodh Gaya and cut down the sacred Bodhi tree, literally the exact, revered location where the Buddha was said to have achieved enlightenment. That action sent shockwaves across the subcontinent. It pretty much cemented his reputation forever as a merciless disruptor who respected absolutely no boundaries, political or spiritual. Bringing us to our final act, Section 5, the rise of Thanesar and the Pushyabhutis. Let's zoom in a bit on those Pushyabhutis, also known as the Vardhanas, based out of Thanesar. Their rise is actually quite the underdog story. The dynasty was originally founded by a mere military general who had served under the imperial Guptas. When the empire fell apart, they just slowly, methodically built up their own state. It was under the ruler Harshavardhana that they truly leveled up into a powerhouse, successfully fighting off Huna invasions and locking down control over Gujarat or Malwa. But, as we literally just saw, this whole golden age comes crashing down when Harshavardhana's eldest son, Harshavardhana, falls into Shashanka's deadly trap, which leaves the kingdom in a state of absolute, total crisis. The king is dead, the sister is locked in a dungeon somewhere, the older brother is murdered. Into this absolute nightmare steps the younger brother, Harshavardhana. He is super young, he's completely overwhelmed with grief, and he's totally surrounded by enemies. According to the historical accounts, he didn't even want the crown at first. No way. He only reluctantly takes the throne after some serious urging from his minister Palini and getting spiritual advice from Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva. It is this moment of just profound vulnerability for a kingdom that is seriously teetering right on the edge of destruction. Which leaves us with a fascinating, truly monumental question to end on. How exactly does a grieving, reluctant young king turn this bloody, shattered landscape into one of India's greatest historical empires? The post-Gupta world was entirely defined by betrayal and division, right? But as you walk away from this explainer today, I want you to consider what kind of extraordinary, next-level leadership it would actually take to stitch all those broken pieces back together. Think about the sheer willpower required for Harsha to not only avenge his family, but to basically rewrite the entire map of ancient India. That is absolutely something to ponder. Until next time.